last part of this meeting, has it been good so far? You guys learned a lot? We thought it'd be, when me and Bernardini did the outline, we kind of wanted to start the meeting off by giving you guys like knowledge about our company, like corporate culture, values, like what we believe in as a company. And then I wanted to finish it just with something a little bit different, more life stuff. That I believe like if you build really, really good people will build a great company kind of thing. So before I start, I'll give you a quick background on the next 55 minutes of randomness. It might be pretty good. It might suck. I don't know. We'll see. But in the last 7 years, I've been part of a group called EO. So it's you have to have a company that's at least $5 million to join EO, and it has to have a minimum of at least 10 employees, something like that. And so I joined that in Sacramento. I've been in that for about 7 years. Through that process of being an EO, entrepreneurs organization, so you have to be a founder or a CEO to be in the group. And about 3 years into it, I wanted to learn more. I'm like, I'd never been a CEO of a company. I didn't know if I was like serving the company well or not. It's hard as a CEO because there's no like, you don't go to undergrad for CEO. And if you read, most CEOs say that MBAs are a fucking joke. No offense to anybody got an MBA. I don't want to offend anybody. But they go, MBAs don't mean anything. Like the best people run every company, the vast majority of them, 95% of them don't even have MBAs, right? They say if you're gonna get an MBA, it's more, you go to Stanford or Harvard, and it's the people you meet during the MBA and the connections you make at the school that matter more than the school itself. So I went to Harvard for a year, did a CEO program at Harvard, and I did a 3-year program at MIT. And learned a lot of great stuff. In fact, I was really inspired during that process. Some of you guys have heard this, talked about this for like 3 years. I'm like, I'm gonna write a book because there's so many great things. And I literally have, it might even be a book and a half written. It's just my ADD is so bad that when people read it, they're like, none of this ties together. It's great, but it's so random. So I don't know. I'll publish it one day. I just gotta somehow tie it together, but whatever. It's the book's gonna be called Success Algorithm, and it's based on, they used to say like in college, we'd say like, what's the key to success? Like what's the key, what's the key, what's the key? And then what you learn over time is, I heard a good quote in college, said there's no key, it's a combination of locks. So you have to do a combination of things, right? And I think because of technology in the last probably 5 years, maybe 10 years, it's just changed, disrupted so much. So it's not what the key is, it's not a lock, it's more of an algorithm now, right? And so that's the book title is called The Success Algorithm, just based on like, if we were selling, you could do different things. Like you could do, my buddy Greg owns a marketing company. He does not have one salesperson in his entire company. He owns Trifecta. They do $150 million a year in food distribution. Not one salespeople. It's like, I don't believe in salespeople. I'm like, well, that's kind of funny. That's all our company is salespeople. And he's like, all he does is spends insane amount, millions and millions every month on marketing, Facebook, Instagram. He's just like a marketing master of funnels, and he built it that way. So the point of the success algorithm, you could build 100 companies 100 different ways, and there's literally a million ways to make $1 million in life, right? And one of our goals as an organization is to have 20 people in this room make $1 million a year. And that's kind of like something that really inspires us and drives us. So what I did is from this book, I have all these crazy ideas. So the only way I could mathematically make this presentation make sense is to come up with a number and say, here's 10 things that could change your life. Is that cool? So if you're taking notes, that's what it's called. 10 things will change your life. So number 1, we'll go through these 10 things in 53 minutes. So first and foremost, like when I did the program at Harvard and MIT, I've got the privilege to study under 6 billionaires. So these are people with a net worth of $1 billion more came in and spent a day or two with us. We could ask them any question, how they ran their companies, how they built it. And it's funny because you start to see commonalities when people speak. It's almost like when Mike and Danielle speak, and then Chris Barton, and you have Greg, and everybody's like, if you work hard, if you learn from people, if you make the sales calls, you'll be successful. And then everybody's like, but what else is there? Like, I'm sure you're missing something else. And it really comes down, even like whether you're running a company or doing sales, running a distributorship, whatever it is, there's like this core element of what makes people successful. So when I start out, there's a bunch of stuff I could have chose to pick as number one, but I want to pick mindset because I've met some really, really smart people in life. I've mentored some great reps that knew everything. They had all the knowledge. They actually had the work ethic too, but they're just fucking negative people, right? And it's like, have you guys ever worked with something like that? And you're like, it doesn't matter what I tell you or teach you, you're just a negative person, right? And until you change that, nothing will matter. And I tell this story, there's a guy in our organization, a bunch of you guys know him, some of you don't, his name's Orion. Orion was in prison for 9 years. He literally, like in the, I don't know levels of prison, but he was like the hardcore prison. And the stories I've gathered from him, sounds like it was pretty aggressive. So we had this thing where like, man, you know what, like, he came on under a distributor. He actually didn't work for our company at first. He worked for Kevin, who was his local Sacramento distributor. He was a fitter, worked really hard. He won Fitter of the Year, absolutely killed it. He had the best customer service. That guy had, like, he was just so grateful. Like, coming out, like, he was basically in prison from age, roughly, like 20, I think it was like 23 to 32. It's like prime years of your life to be in prison. He gets out, he's like just so grateful. He's such a good example of like positive attitude. But through selling, so he's a fitter and then an associate rep, and then we're giving him a chance to do sales, right? Which we don't, in Sacramento it's really hard. We've been here for 10 years, nobody gets the opportunity to be sales reps in Sac, right? We'll give you a couple accounts to see how you do. And he didn't do very well. And everybody knows the story. Orion bills like $130,000, $140,000 a month right now. So people know the story where he ends up. The first 3 months, this isn't part of this, but one thing he did smart is, he's like, hey, you said in multiple presentations you want to get in better shape. I'm like, yeah, probably talk about sales. I want to get in better shape. He's like, let me help you with that. And the dude's like yoked, right? I'm like, okay, that'd be great. So I started working out with him every morning at 7 a.m. So by doing that, he was with me every day at 7 a.m. He'd be like, hey, what do you do in this situation? Hey, got this doctor here. So I always give him ideas. Well, about his third or fourth month, and he's billing about 10, 15 grand, not doing bad, but not doing great. He's not killing it. And all these problems. And after like the 5th day in a row, me solving problems for this guy, I'm like, you know what your fucking problem is? He's like, are you mad at me? No, I'm just gonna be very, very honest with you. He's like, okay, what's my problem? I'm like, you're negative. Like, you can just see, like, all you're looking for is problems. Fix this, fix that, I'm doing this wrong. Like, I want you to just go out there. I don't want you to complain about anything for 2 weeks. I don't want to hear one problem with our company. I don't care about Looker. I don't care about Net. Like, I don't want to fucking hear anything but good shit for 2 weeks. And then we'll deal with problems later, right? He's like, well, okay, I'll try it. And he came in the next day. He's like, oh, it's great. I'm so motivated. He's like, hey, what would you do with this? I'm like, that was negative. Okay. So like, I had to coach this kid to be nothing but look for nothing but positive, positive, positive. He didn't even realize it, right? And he ends up scaling up, does 30 grand, 50 grand, gets about 100,000, now he's 140,000. Anybody knows Orion is like, it's such a great story. It's not somebody who had a great background, right? It's not like you learn amazing sales skills in prison, you know? I mean, I don't think you do. But, so here's how it relates to this part of mindset. So everybody always talks about mindset, and I saw this presentation 20 years ago, and it stuck me to this day. So I'm gonna kind of do it for you guys real quick. I still think about it, and it's been that long. So this is kind of like your mind, right? So everybody says, oh, have a great mindset, but they never talk about that. Like, what does it mean to have like a positive attitude, positive mindset, all that. So this is like neutral mind, right? This is like, this is just your brain. Okay, and what happens is, I'll give you some examples. You guys can throw out some examples too, help me with this. There's just a bunch of stuff in life that kind of happens. I'll give you some examples. So like, things that you can't even control, right? We are having our 10-year anniversary party. It was awesome. We had like, what, 60 people outside or something? We had food trucks, all that. And all of a sudden my phone was ringing. They're like, your kid's school shut down. Like, what? You guys shut down the school? That seems a little aggressive. And they're like, yeah, there's a pandemic. Ooh, that's not good, you know? And you get on the news and they're like, oh, people are dying everywhere. Oh my God. And then, I don't even know. I mean, right, this is valid, right? Did anybody like, there was a time where like,
this is real.
humanity's ending, you know? You're like, I don't know, you read, and then like, you guys can throw out some examples. What's some negative stuff the last like 7 months? Throw out some ideas.
Masks.
In
both directions.
Yeah.
Mask availability.
Karens, yes.
Karens.
I'm gonna keep pouring for that one.
Eric said suicides, divorce.
Suicide, divorce, yep. How about like politics? Oh my God. I don't know.
Wildfires, yeah. California fires.
Yeah.
Just in, here you might have something. So, just in general, like politics has been, well, it doesn't matter what side you're on, like that has been like pretty negative. It is slippery, huh? So, you start going through this, and the point is, if the water represents positivity, you can go through it, and like people during COVID was a good example. Just it highlights just life in general. Like if you're in isolation, you're not talking to people, you don't have a lot of positive things happening, you tend to dwell on negative things. There's TV in general, watching Netflix. Anybody, if you spend a lot of time on social media, I know there's some positive stuff, there's a lot more negative. They say that like it has to be incredibly, extremely positive for a news station to sell it, for it to get any ratings. It has to be like really positive. But if it's just halfway negative, people like negative stories. Ooh, what happened? You know? So it's like just news in general, right? So you get it. So like this is over time, this could be like how your mind works. Does that make sense? You become very, very negative. And you don't even notice. Like there's people all the time. I'm sure you guys have like family members. It could be a spouse that's negative. It could be, anybody. And the more time you're spending with negative people, it wears off on you, right? So the principle, like the takeaway from mindset is like, how do you get negativity out of your mind, right? That's what we work with a lot of sales reps on. It's like, they're just negative. And the thing is, it doesn't really work where like, oh, you pour, like let's just say you go, okay, you know what, I'm gonna pour positivity on it. So positivity would be like positive affirmations, and I don't know how it's gonna work out, we'll see. So you go positive affirmations, reading good books, podcasts. Like for me, I'm really, I become like the people I'm surrounded by kind of thing. So for me, it's really important to like find really successful people in life and spend time with them. Grab dinner, grab coffee, pick what's working for you. Even being here is like super motivational, right? So I'm like, I can stay at the bar till 3 a.m. I think we joked about like, do you like talking for business? I'm like, oh, fucking talk business till like, I just love it. Like it's how I'm wired, right? So you spend time with people, all that. But you might be, you might actually be, like by doing this, in this analogy, you could, this thing's supposed to take, the jar should be a little narrower, so I don't have to like keep pouring for days. But the point is, it takes weeks. It's not like just spending one day and you get to be like positive mindset. Does that make sense? So what you gotta do, I'll show you real quick, where you might have to help me here. I didn't think this thing was gonna float right here. So you gotta remove like people from your life that are like negative and just like bad things. If you're watching the news, you gotta cut that shit out. So you dump out, like the analogy is you dump out all the old stuff. And even when you still have like residual, so your brain still holds it. So what I kind of learned at like MIT and Harvard is just the power of a positive mindset, the things you can do with it. So if you just keep pouring, like, and this is, I made a list of some things, you guys can draw some things too, but like having goals, right? For me, I got this goals list I look at and I go, and sometimes it trips you up. I'm like, I want to build a resort in my backyard. And other people are like, me too. I'm like, I want a lazy river. Like, well, I was just thinking like a resort with palm trees and a pool. I'm like, I want a 14-foot grotto. I want an 85-foot water slide coming down this. And it's like, for me, that like, it fires me up. Be like, dude, I want to walk outside. Sacramento kind of sucks. So it's not like we live like in Newport Beach or something where you walk outside and it's a beautiful beach. Sacramento's like, I don't know. I wouldn't put it in like the top 10 prettiest cities in the world kind of thing. So like, I just want to build this resort in my backyard. So I walk out, I am like, I don't even need to travel. Like, I am stoked to be there. So it's like positive things like that. You just keep pouring in, right? And over time, as you keep pouring in the positivity, what it does is it makes room. This white thing out there. And you eventually have, like in this analogy, would be your place, like this is your brain, and over time, if you just keep doing the right things, spending time with people, giving back, donating, things like that are just all positive things. And probably the last thing on the list, this left, you always have, like, life's gonna throw you curveballs, and I think it's super false to be, like, let's just say, like, you create these perfect world, these podcasts you'll speak, you know, it's like you're always gonna have something negative happen, but it's like what you do with it. Does that make sense? So you have like a doctor's like, oh, I don't believe in DVT. I would never use that device. My patients have never gotten blood clots. Never? Not once. That was amazing. Like 8 friends have gotten blood clots. You know, that's crazy. And you start hearing these like negative things, so but you can't control that, right? The power of it, this analogy is you just got to keep pouring on a daily basis. You just pour the positive stuff in your life, and then over time, like you get a clear head. Does that make sense? And when you have a clear head, you can see things. Like you ever been around somebody, and that's why these billionaires speak, and they say they can just see things ahead on the chessboard that nobody else is seeing, or they'll connect dots. Like, wait, if we did this here, and they're always thinking about creation and what can be created. We did one, and I'll hit on my part later, but I had this kid I met with, super cool kid in Sacramento. He's starting his own business. I'm like, what is it? So I put $100,000 into it. He had all the patents around thermoforming for watercraft, and he could basically encompass like an engine and put it underwater, and the engine would still run, but it was totally sealed. It was a crazy patent. So I threw it to our patent attorney, like, is this legit? The patent attorney's like, these are good patents. Like, this will hold up, right? This patent attorney is pretty good. So I put $100,000 in. Everybody was negative in town. I'm going around Sacramento meeting people like, hey, it's a great idea. You guys should invest in this, should invest in it. Nobody. I got blown off by probably about 30 people. I keep this list. I remind them of this day. I'm like, you guys missed out on this, right? Fast forward, we ended up selling the company for $13 million to Nikola. I own 10% of it because that's the equity position I put in. So I put in like $350,000. We sold it for $13 million, but Nikola is the company that bought it, bought Jordan's company. They bought it for all corporate stock. If you guys, does any of you here follow Nikola at all? So I got into Nikola at just under $1. That was the stock price when they bought our company like 3 years ago. Nikola today is probably like 22, 23 bucks or something. If you follow Nikola, it also went up to 80 and it came back. That's like a roller coaster ride. My $300,000 turned into $22 million. I'm not exaggerating this. It's gone down. Now, right now, it's worth, I think, quick math, probably around $6 million, roughly, is what it's worth. The $300,000 that went in. But I would have never. It's kind of all ties. Like, I just wanted to like help this kid. I was actually trying to give back. I was trying to help him, kind of mentor him in his thing. I saw this idea. I'm like, man, these patents are solid. Threw it to the patent attorney, and then it was like everything just came together, you know? And that'll relate to some of these other parts, but a lot of these other takeaways are a lot quicker. Mindset is like the game changer. It's like there's so many people, like when I went to pitch this idea, I didn't get anything out of it. It was just friends in the community had money. I'm like, go to a friend and say, hey, it's a great company, you should invest in it. Oh, I don't like this, this, and this. I'm like, what else don't you like? You know? I'm like, it's a kid. The company's not worth $100 million. The company's worth like $3 million. He's got a lot to fix, but everybody was so negative through the process. And I think me just seeing it through a clear lens of like a positive mindset is what made the difference. So that's number one, positive mindset. Number two, if you're taking notes, have a vision. Vision is so important, and you gotta. Again, we're blessed to where we work and what we get to do for a living. There was one time in my life I was kind of thinking like the opposite on this one. What was the time I didn't have a vision? Because I have like all these visions of things right now. And right out of college, I was a stockbroker. Have you ever heard the story for 2 years? And it was absolutely miserable. I hated it. Like I just cold call people on the phone every day trying to sell them bonds. And I would sit there. I'm like, I just don't see myself. Like I don't see myself in 10 years or 20 years jumping on the phone selling bonds to people on this phone. Like it just didn't resonate with me. And that's when I'm like, you know what? I got to go get a new job. Like this is just not the right thing. And luckily, I had some friends in medical that were making great money, but more importantly, than that, they loved what they did. They're like, it's so cool. We're in the operating room, and this patient this. I'm like, man, I want something like that in life, you know. So vision. You guys, a lot of people here run distributorships. I would challenge you guys, like even in your distributorship, you should have a vision of what you want in your distributorship, and share that with. Share that with your group. This is what we did like the first 8 years. Our vision is for our company. So kind of interesting stat. I'm not going to stat this. It's crazy. For every 100 people in America, there's a survey done. It's like, do you like your job? Kind of like, strongly disagree, or hate, right? 74% of America hate. They like despise their job. Isn't that crazy to think? Like the vast majority of Americans go to work every day in a job they hate. So have a vision. Number 3 is set goals. So we always talk about this. I'm gonna do a test real quick. Actually, if you grab my wallet, Kristen, back there, I'll prove it to you guys because I didn't have my wallet on me. Who still keeps their goals in their wallet? Raise your hand. Okay, let's prove it. This is like we say that.
I keep 2 things. I keep my blue chip.
Yeah.
And I keep year after year, but back to back.
Okay, so throw out a couple goals. Inspire
Read the ones that I can say. I wanted to get into a country club. That was a goal I had, and I achieved that last year.
Cool. It's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Okay, Cameron.
Actually, on my dash. I thought it was in my wallet. I put them on my dashboard, actually.
That's all right. Throw one of your goals up.
One of them was to bill, from last year, it was to bill over 100,000.
Cool.
So, check that box.
Awesome, man. Give him a round of applause for that. When you first wrote that goal, I mean, people don't know. People now are like, "Oh, of course, Cameron." Like that was like a far stretch for you.
Oh my God, I was billing like 5,000 months, 10,000
Yeah.
months, something like that.
Yep. Crazy.
I think it was the San Diego meeting, so 3 years ago.
Yeah, Uriah. Yeah.
I wrote down on the list that I wanted to buy a house, and then this last year I bought it. That was cool.
Dude, that's awesome. So everybody's goals are different. There's different things that inspire you. There's 2 things with that I'd say. Just number 1, think really big, because your goal shouldn't be like, it should be something to keep in your, I have got 5 goals in my wallet right here, that it has like one, I'll just tell you real quick so you know. So I think about it like, so I travel, I put Italy, Japan, or Buenos Aires. Part of that is also because like COVID, I can't control where you go now, so I picked 3. In the past, I've done like 1 for the year, wherever I really want to go. I put also like fitness, like I want to get back down. I have like I say I want to get back down to 15% body fat, which my number used to be like 10. Now I'm like, let's do something a little more attainable. Let's get 15 first. So these are mine. Like this is, we also put Bruce inspires you. Like buy a 3rd building. I've had that on my list, and we just toured a building. We put an offer in, so we're like, we'll see how that plays out. But having those goals made a big difference. The building acquisitions, for example, that's not. I'm not gonna. PMP doesn't pay for any of that. PMP pays fair market rent basically, but we do that with totally separate investment money. It actually saves Precision money, to be honest. But we now have between the 3 buildings, this 3rd one goes through, it'll be 145,000 square feet of real estate. We have like corporate office, we own that, 16,000. We have the distribution center, 77,000. Then we're buying another one, 50,000. We kind of made a joke, right? Me and Bruce, if we can buy 1 per year for the next 20 years, we'll have a couple million square feet in real estate. And you do that like small investing over like large amounts of time. It could be a real estate portfolio.
Well, when you get to 15 million in values, then you do that in 20 years, or $100 million portfolio.
Yeah, I was gonna say 200, but yeah.
With appreciation.
Yeah. So, but that's just something again, like that may inspire you, may not. You're like, I don't really care about it. Like, so, but for me, it's something that gets me up in the morning, and I get excited about it. So that's set goals, and with that, have a plan. So that's the next one on there. Have a plan. So what's the quote? It's like goals without a plan is just a dream, And it's like having a plan, having a strategy. In my opinion, is actually more important than the goals. I think having goals is fine, but having an actual clear-cut plan is the game changer, written out and detailed. There was a Harvard study. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I talked about it in the Phoenix meeting a couple years ago, and if you take the time and put the strategy, Harvard did this. I think it was like a 4 or 5 year study. They did it in the late 70s, and they tracked all the people at Harvard in their business program, and they went back 30 years later and tracked who was successful and who wasn't, and they found out who had goals and who wrote down their goals. Right? Long story short, basically, The 98, so if you took out about every 100 people, there's 2 people, and this study was like probably 10,000 people, but 2% beat all 98% combined. Does that make sense? Or maybe it was 3%. I don't know if you'll say 3%. Sorry, 3% beat all 97% combined, which is pretty crazy. If you put 100 people in a room, you're like 30 years from now, we're gonna have it's a pretty long contest, right? We're gonna have 100 of us in the room, and in 30 years from now, we're gonna see who makes the most money, right? And that's a contest. 3 people in that room beat 97 of them combined. Those people, the difference with them is they had goals and they wrote down their goals and had a strategy around them, right? There's a lot of studies on like goal setting, putting plans in place, but I'm just amazed, and I don't want to make it negative or anything, but like I'm just amazed at how many people don't do it. You know, like I know in our organization we get a big thing. We do quarterly plans, we review them, but that's just not the normal. Like we are in the 1% of like Americans that do that. The vast majority of people do not do that. What I'd probably challenge you guys to do, sit down with like your significant other, if you have one, and do goal setting with them. You know, sit down with your kids, sit down with, like do it in all areas of your life. Do it for health, do it for physical, mental, spiritual. Go through all the different areas of life. You can do goal setting not just for business, but other things too. So what am I on? 0.5 or 6? 5. Okay. So this is what I got from Harvard. We had there was a 8-hour program on this. It kind of blew me away. The reason we've got, so this is like, when did you start as a VP?
3 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. This is exactly 3 years ago then, or probably 3.5 when I was at Harvard. So the constraint in our company, so everybody has a constraint. Whether you're a salesperson, a distributor, or running any kind of company, there's always some constraint. It doesn't matter how motivated you are or your work ethic, there's always like something holding back every organization. And this billionaire at Harvard was talking about like identifying the constraint and removing it so your company can flourish. We had to break off into groups for 30 minutes and talk about our constraints. And I'm like, oh, billing, and then I was trying to think how all it is, and like, but it really dawned on me. He's like, sometimes it's simple, sometimes it's a people constraint, right? So for us at the time, Morgan wasn't a VP, but Anthony and then Chris Barton were the 2 VPs. Remember this from back in the day? And Chris Barton ran 48 states. I mean, that's like the worst way to scale a company is put like one VP has 2 states, this other VP has 48 states. Like, even if he's doing great, it'll just never grow. And I came back like, our constraint was our VPs. I don't know if you remember this. I came back like, we gotta hire VPs. Like, so we restructured the whole balance sheet in the company. We're gonna put money into bringing in really talented VPs in our company so that the company can grow. And we did. Look at the growth chart from the last 4 years. We grew astronomical. Morgan came in. He was a distributor. Brought him as a VP, and he killed it. So everybody in this room has different constraints. Think through like, what is your constraint? Some of you guys, I was talking to Brian Novitsky, who's an amazing rep, but he's doing all his own fittings right now. He does like 34 fittings a week, and like, you're never gonna grow because every time he grows a little, he's got even more fittings to do. I mean, you gotta get out there and get a fitter. If you about the thing is, if this doctor, if anything happens, I'll lose him. I'm like, get that out of your head. Like, we have fitters everywhere. Anybody that's doing really big numbers, so that Brian has to get a fitter. Then this conversation, like, I gotta get a fitter, you know, and it's just like a little bit of control thing. Like, let go of that, get the fitter in, teach him how to do it the right way. You can definitely do that. So that was his constraint. Everybody's got different ones. Was number 6 now? Yep. Okay. Number 6 is give back. Again, these are in totally different, a different order. This isn't as much. This is, in my opinion, is like more of a happiness kind of thing. Like, the happiest I've been in my life is like giving to like people less fortunate. And I just think even the Bible talks, it is like, even if you can only give $10, but that's a meaningful amount to you, you give it, you know? If some people, we give a lot more, it doesn't matter. It's the theory and the thought process behind giving. It says like in the Bible, it's better to give than it is receive, right? And it's just so good. It doesn't have to be money, it could be time, but just donating like time and giving back, you'll have a like way more success, way more happiness. It's just like an important thing. I've seen some most successful people I've met in my life, they give back an immense amount of money, an immense amount of time, and they're just like giving humans. It's like one of the commonalities that I've seen in successful people. So point number 7, right, is the power of investing. And go back one. Okay, so one of my goals on here, I share this, and then sometimes my wife's like, you can't talk about money so much. She's like, it trips people out. I'm like, why? In my mind, it's like not a bad thing, you know. And we're very open with money. Like I think it's a good thing. I think it's like how like people at the top they run pretty transparent organizations. And what I've noticed like with investing, my point on this, like so many people don't invest, right? It's the same principle and concept. Even if you can only invest $1,000 this year, right? Somebody can invest 10,000. There's other people in this room that need to invest 100,000. You make way more money. You need to start investing now. If you ever seen those curves, like the time value of money, you put money in like this, and it goes over time. So the reason I'm big on this, I told you in the beginning, I used to be a stockbroker, right? So I've sat through all these presentations of these people that are worth an incredible amount of money, and they had $5 grand, became 10, everything like starts going over time, right? So I don't know, I just want to hit that for you guys. It's such an important thing to invest. I'd also say we did net worth calculators, and remember I made a joke. This is like about thinking big. I'm like, I want to buy the Sacramento Kings one day. Amber's like, that's crazy. And then we mind mapped it one day because they're like, what you're supposed to do when you hear success books, like you have a crazy dream and then you break down the goal, right? How would you do it? How much money would you need? So we started researching, what are the Kings worth? And the Kings at the time we researched were worth about just a hair over $1 billion. Okay? We researched to be the main holder of the Kings, the current main holder only owns 16%. So it's actually a group of people, right? So to replace him, you only have to own 16%. So it's like 160 million. And then we reversed how long it would take to get 160 million. We mind mapped this. Actually, me and my friend Tyler did it. We're like, dude, we can do this in the next 10 years. We could buy 30% of Kings and be the number one main holders of the Kings. It also became this this is a funny goal that we'll probably never have. You know what I mean? Gary Vee talks about buying the Jets. I'm like, will it? And then we put it on paper and we did it all this is totally doable. I think, and I don't want to overinflate it. I think it's a high probability that me and this one other guy own the Sacramento Kings in the next 15 years. It's and I'm not just saying that, we really believe it now because this is the last year of my head we can do this, And it sounded like the craziest thing in the beginning, but it totally has become a reality, right? And that's the power of thinking really, really big and doing it. You reverse engineer the buildings, right? You reverse engineer the Nikola stock. They can come back to what they should do. That should be worth at least 50 million. You start doing all these things. I have a shitload of investments. I've invested in a lot of seed stage companies. A few of those hit. Precision keeps climbing like it is. It's you start putting all those pieces together. Who we drafted? So it just becomes a reality. Point number 7 on there is you become the people you surround yourself with. And we always say this. Again, there's 100 ideas. This is my top 10. One of the things that's really, really helped me, I'd say a few of us in the room, Ben Dotson, Anthony was there, Max, I'm forgetting, who else sold books? Chris Knighton, Clemenson. There's a few of us in college that sold books, and I think it was probably the hardest job you could ever do in life, but surrounding myself with really great salespeople early on, and people that were big dreamers and want to accomplish big things, made such a huge difference. I'd say on the flip side, some of you guys probably need to end a couple of relationships in your life. You might have a really good friend or somebody that you spend a lot of time with. For me, family is really important to me, but I got one of my brothers is he's bipolar, he's just crazy stuff, and I'm always trying to help him. And I realized it was just incredibly negative on my life, and it's a balance. You want to love people and spend time, but you don't want to spend an immense amount of time because then it brings you down so much. And there's a lot of studies behind that too. But you become like the people you're surrounded by. Okay, this is probably my favorite one in terms of like fun. I do this every quarter. I rate myself on this. It's called Wheel of Life. Raise your hand if you've ever done this. Raise your hand high. Okay. So, was it good to do for people who've done it? What was like one thing that stuck out when you did the Wheel of Life?
I was unbalanced. Not putting the right focus in family and faith in other areas, and everything was shifted towards work and friends and not so other positive activities in my life at the time.
Yep. Okay. What else? Who's that's great.
I did it with my wife, and it was interesting to see the difference between the two of us. You know, some things that we had ideals that were similar, but we were off in different areas. So just kind of seeing that was helpful.
So if you type into Google, it'll print right. You can print it out. It's like right on Google Images. It's called the Wheel of Life, and you do 8 areas of your life. So you do like finance, how you doing financially, personal growth, so like reading books. What are you doing for personal growth? Health, family, relationships, social life, attitude, career. You rate all the different things, and what happens is, this is such a good analogy. Part you was talking about outside, like you ever meet? This happens all the time. We meet like I'll go to a mentorship program. I'll meet this guy. He's like 65 years old, killed it, like worth X amount, like 500 million, built this great company. But you're so excited to meet him, or him or her. But my opinion. My experience was with like the 6 men involving guys, but I meet these guys and then they're overweight. They've been like divorced 2 times, and I'm like, "It's great. You did really well in like your career and probably finances. Like you got a lot of money, but like your relationships suck. You're spiritually empty. You know, it's like all these things. And what happens is over a long period of time, like decades and decades." If you get really, really good at one thing, but then you neglect all the other areas of your life, you become totally imbalanced. Does that make sense? And it's so important, like to just quarterly. We do a quarterly check, and you just go through that. And it's been times where I look at it and I'm like, man, there's certain things that I just need to work on. It's just an eye opener. It's like, okay, once you become cognizant of it, you're like, okay, I'm not really spending a lot of time with my friends, so I'm gonna text a few people and set up like catch up with some of my buddies I've really been spending time with the last 6 months because we just got so busy, you know. So things like that. The last one, the very last one on here is something. It's a little bit different, and so you write it down. It's called intentional imbalance, and so it's kind of like number 9 and 10 kind of conflict each other. This is what I've just seen personally in my life, and it's probably like one of the biggest takeaways for everybody's room. So kind of how I want to end the meeting is there's a lot of people that are balanced, but if you ever see anybody that does anything great in life, anybody that accomplishes something really, really incredible, it could be like an athlete like Michael Jordan, it could be somebody that does something in business or finance, politics, whatever it is, right? Mother Teresa, it could be all these different areas of life, somebody that's really, really incredible. They're for the most part not incredibly balanced. Does that make sense? So like they might focus on little areas, but they overcommit. So, and the reason I share it with you, 2 of my best friends in life. One is you guys ever show hands who follows UFC? So yeah, not by default. Like, I'm actually not like by default a UFC fan, but I got in a business group with Uriah 7 years ago, and I was like, oh, it's great. Everybody's like, oh, you're amazing. He's a Hall of Fame UFC fighter, Uriah Faber. And to me, it was just like, I spent more time on the business side with Uriah, with the gyms and memberships, and I helped him tweak his businesses and stuff. And we became really, really good friends. And then through the process, a couple years ago, he had a fighter named Cody Garbrandt. Cody, you guys know Cody? The name Cody was a world champion for a year. And it's been, you gotta remember, there's a lot of people that try really hard just to get in the UFC for fighting. And then within the UFC, there's thousands of fighters. To be able to be the #1 in the entire world, you are on a very, very elite level, right? Well, I get to see these guys on a daily basis and what they do, right? I'll tell you, like, they are not when they set a goal and they go to a training camp, it's actually the exact methodology we do. So they have a 12-week, they do a 12-week year, 12 weeks, and that 12 weeks, from the second they wake up, it's like food, diet, training, food, diet. Does that make sense? They are on like regimens for 12 weeks in the most elite shape of their life. Because they're going to the octagon and they lose, you get knocked out, you get permanently damaged. Like it is a very serious thing. And it was, I like to take the analogy, same thing like when we sold books. It's like if you can just in business, you can take 3 months, right? There's 12 weeks. And instead of, if you took somebody, we always use this analogy in medical. I did it with Orion when he first started. I'm like, if you can put your head down for 12 weeks and you wake up early in the morning, you make more sales calls than anybody else, you do better paperwork, you work referral reps, and you just work like these 80, 90, 100-hour weeks and just super commit as hardcore as you can, right? So it's only short duration. You do that for 3 months, 6 months, whatever it might be, you will get the person that does that in a short duration. So if you're to take like a 3-year period and you're saying, I'm gonna work 40 hours a week for 3 years, right? If you front loaded all the hours in year one, you would end up getting 10 times the result of somebody that just worked 40 hours across. Does that make sense? And I've seen it happen time and time again. And there's something about the mindset. I don't know what it is, because it doesn't make sense. Like if you put in that many hours, made that sales call, it should all balance out to be the same, and it's just not. There's like this, it's what Tony Robbins calls like the slide edge theory, right? It's like if you're like in baseball, if your batting average is just a little bit better than everybody else, your contract's worth 10 million, 20 million more, 50 million. I mean, baseball things are insane. You being just a little bit more hungry, when a doctor or surgery center is deciding on who they're going to use, I mean, I just like this rep, like spot on. I wish Zach was here with a story about Zach landing that new surgery center, which is, how big is it?
It's
180 cases a month, 180 cities, and then it just parlayed to another one, it's 180.
Yeah. So it sounds like the two centers combined to make $100,000, right?
Yep.
And he got it solely because the doctor needed a brace, and he dropped exactly, like whatever he was doing, he's like, I drop it, I'm there, right? It's like another rep might have been, oh, I'll get there tomorrow, or I'll be there in a couple hours, or whatever it is. It's like, what he was doing is like, he was there at the doctor's place in like 14 minutes or something. He's there right away. He's there to help out, whatever I can do to help you guys. And that little bit of difference, if you do that over and over again, that is like how reps produce amazing results. I don't like to end this way because sometimes it throws off rookies. But I was with Mike and Danielle at their beach house 2 weeks ago because we had the Philly meeting. And it's awesome. Like they do like multi-million-dollar beach house in Bethany Beach, Delaware. It's awesome. It's inspiring. And you think with me being there, they'd be like, I asked them, I wait till there's like 4 or 5 drinks in, you know, a little bit loose. And they're like, Mike, be honest with me real quick. Like, this beach house is in Bethany Beach, Delaware. You guys live 5 hours north, right? You guys work pretty hard. You're #1 reps in the whole nation. How many days do you spend at this beach house, right? I was thinking like, every other week, going there for a weekend, and we jam. It's like, oh, Perkins, our goal next year is to be here for at least 100 days. I'm like, it's not even in your fucking territory. Like, you're gonna spend 100 days next year at your beach house? He's like, yeah, we're gonna try and beat that number. Like, how do you do that? He's like, our business is on autopilot, bro. He's like, we got referral, he's like, we got referral reps here that bring us orders. We got our fitters and associate reps take care of accounts. And then we got our whether it's 2 or 3 admin people that take care of all the admin work. And I'm like, you know what, most companies would be like, probably like get mad at that. You know, like you got your 2 top reps that sit in the beach 100 days a year. It's pretty crazy. I'm like, that's awesome, man, because that just shows like the last 6, 7 years they've been with us and they work really, really hard, and they built this amazing distributorship that keeps growing. Mike's growth number, even with COVID and everything, was he's up 600 grand for the year.
Yeah.
Mike, year over year, even with everything going on, 600,000. He's like, you know what? It's awesome, man. I'm in a great mood. I love where I live. I still jump on the phone. I still talk to my reps, talk to my doctors. I can quarterback everything. I'm like, good for you. That's like the dream, right? Like, I don't, whether you work 10 hours a week or 90 hours a week, I don't really care. But in this analogy, Mike and Danielle worked really hard. We saw it in the beginning. They were putting in 80, 90-hour weeks. They were meeting with everybody. They were having dinners with doctors. They were in go mode. And the thing I love about Danielle is like kind of my personality works too. I hate when people waste my time, right? And I get salespeople all the time. Like It's weird, like in my position, there'll be people that want to sell payroll services or credit cards or CPA or whatever it is. There's like 100 things that people try and sell to me. And every once in a while, I'll go, okay, I need to meet with this person who might help the company. But I'm a sales guy, so it's weird to sit on that other end of where you guys are sitting at and have sales people come in and sell to me. And I love, like me personally, I will buy really fast actually. I'm like a pretty good buyer. Even when you're like, fuck, you're hired. Like, when I know what I want, I just go for it. I'm like, let's do it. But when somebody wastes my time, and I'm like, you know, you ever been at a sales presentation where it's just dragging on, the questions aren't really relevant, you're like, just get to the point, you know? And there's something about like this analogy where you work really, really hard, you're trying to, you know, make 10, 15, 20 sales calls a day, and you're just always in front of people, you don't have a lot of time, right? And you're like, hey, Dr. Horn, sorry it's such a rush, hey, did we just fit 3 patients this week? Boom, boom, boom. Everything's going good. How's it going with you? Okay, great. And you're just jamming. People notice that. They're like, dude, they're killing it. Like, it's not. I know there's a balance at it. You don't want to be like too quick and not be personal. But when people notice that, it's like you have urgency and you're doing big things and accomplishing. They want to be part of that, you know. And it's just this weird. We call it the slide edge theory and intentional imbalance. So I just challenge, not for everybody's room. Some people, everybody's in a different part of their life, but if you're like a rookie, I would challenge you, like try it for 3 months, try it for 12 weeks, and throw down like 80-hour weeks. And that sounds crazy. With the premise, like in 2 years from now, I don't care. Like you literally, because the theory would be that you would jam up like Greg Murray and make so much money, and you making our average rep right now is going for 2 years. We don't count the first 2 years because we hire all these 1099s and it throws off the numbers. So if you just hired a bunch of brand new 1099 reps and you put them in the average, it's not really fair. So we just say, who's been with us for at least 2 years? And then does that make sense? So you've been with us for 2 years, and the company's only 10 and a half years. So it's like bigger, at least 2 years, all your reps at 10 years. That group of reps, and there's also some reps in there that work for other companies and all that, the average rep in our company makes $320,000 in that subset. So there's the average person who's been here for 2 years is making really good money, right? There's also been a bunch of people quit and all that. If you guys, it's kind of a way to challenge at the end, if you're a new rep, if you actually did that, you said, I'm gonna go like guns blazing, I'm gonna do these like, it's not the hours, it's just the mindset. Like I'm gonna get up in the morning and nothing else matters to me. I'm gonna play this like a sport, and I'm just gonna go kill, and I'm gonna be competitive, be like, hey, here's 15 other rookies. I did this when I was at Donjoy, when I was a brand new rep, and they sat in a room very similar to this, and we all had to go around. It was really embarrassing because everybody's like, oh, 8 years in physical therapy, I sold dermatology. It's like all these like talented people in the room. Like, I was a stockbroker a month ago, and now I'm in medical. You're like, okay, like, you know. And I sat there, I'm gonna beat every one of these fucking people watch, right? And it took me about a year. I got my butt kicked for 6 months. I didn't know anybody. I probably said the wrong things. But over time, and you were there, like, it's not being cocky or anything, but I'm like, I will beat everything. I put in more hours. I had more conversations. If I didn't know anything, I'd go to the doctor and be like, hey, I don't know podiatry. Would it be cool if I just followed you for a day? I'd love to learn, you know? And I followed doctors. I would go shadow reps. I would do anything to learn. People, for the most part, if you're genuine, you're like, I just really want to learn. My goal in life is like to, really help patients and impact. I want to make sure I'm not saying the wrong things. People are pretty gracious about like helping you out and helping teach you things. And there's just something about that mindset. And I'm not saying that, so I don't want to come across it. You have to work 80, 90 hours a week. It's for a select few people in here, maybe like half the group or something if you're a rookie. If you do that, like with the premise, like and right now we couldn't think of a better time than harvest time. Like it is like the golden time to do it. Do that, and then on the flip side, plan like, I'm gonna go, especially if you guys got distributorships, like go take 2 weeks off and go to Italy. Go do, set up your thing. I did it with Amy every year. Amy's from Africa, and she'd take a full month off and go over to Africa. But she'd work super, super hard, go kill it, put in systems in place, and then go relax. And I think if you got like that carrot at the end, whatever it is, if it's a certain thing you're gonna buy or a certain trip you're gonna take, this theory of like intentional imbalance is like the ultimate game changer in life. I sacrificed a lot just to be our company now. Like I'm not trying to pat myself on the back or anything. Bruce can attest to it. We've put, for every $100 we make as a company, we put $99 back in the company. You know, we have not extracted in the last 10 years of precision medical, less than 1% of the profit ever made in this company has ever been extracted. We put every dime back in, literally, right?
I was telling Morgan and Andrew the other night, I said, I think this might be the first year that Jeremy actually makes more diamonds than precision. So.
Yeah. But I'm good at investing too, so I got the money I do have.
He said it precision. He said it precision.
Yeah. No, but it's a true story because we believe in it long term, right? And it's the same thing you guys should do at your distributorships. Like, if you build it, and that company's also worth a lot of money. Like, so I'm not saying that. I mean, I get the whole idea of like what it's worth on paper. But if you believe in what you're gonna do, like if you like what you do and you really put your heart into it, I would just challenge people in here. It doesn't matter to us, like whether a rep makes it or not, our company's still fine. You know, it's not like our company has to have like these 3 reps do well or we don't make it. We'll be fine either way. But for you in your life, I guarantee you, like I'm so glad the first couple of years in medical, I put my head down and really I went for it. And to be honest with everybody in this room, I missed out on a few of my kids' plays. There was a bunch of school functions I missed out on. I had dinners with doctors. And I told my wife, I'm like, hey, I'm doing this because back to the vision thing. Like, I want to create something really, really big one day. So, you know, we lived like really poor. We had a home that cost, I think it was like $2,100 a month. That we rented like this pretty crappy house. I think $2,100 depending where you're from. In California, where I'm from, like certain sections, not a lot of money for a house. And we just put everything we could back into the company and distributorship and growing it. And then over time, like, you know what, we went to the next house, and then that was the house you saw in the picture. It was like our second house. We had enough money. I did good as a rep at Donjoy. And then we went to start Precision. I'm like, saved up. She's like, I want to be on a backyard for our kids. And they're like, if I work hard, I'll save for the backyard. So when that kid's play came up and I had to miss it, I'm like, I gotta meet this doctor, you know? She'd be like, I want the backyard. It's more important than the play. Go for it. Does that make sense? And that's just kind of like, if you create that vision and really, really buckle down and put your heart in it, huge things happen. I feel like I'm not explaining the slide edge theory to its fullest, but there's something super magical about like, you're pot committed. You're like, I'm just fucking going for this. I'm gonna destroy everybody else, and I'm gonna make big, big things happen. And if you do that, it's kind of the challenge I want to end with. You can do incredible things. And I hope later a part of your vision is like the Mike and Danielle story, you know, where you got that beach house in Bethany Beach or wherever it is, and they're you know at a great place. They're still doing well, still growing, but they are fully enjoying life. You know, and I think it's such a good long-term vision to have. So that's it. Those are my 10 things.